Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. Today is Thursday at 2 o'clock. I'm here in Chesapeake, Virginia. I'm broadcasting live to YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and to the rest of the world. I'm also in my studio with my wife, Gloria.
Hello, everyone.
And she'll be monitoring the broadcast and checking on the chat room. And I'll put the chat room on right now. I want to get some comments on and have any questions you have on today's broadcast. Today I'm going to talk about winter trees. And winter trees are interesting because there you see the tree, the shape of the tree, how the limbs and the parts of the tree grow. And then when you see the leaves on it, then you can understand all the important parts of the tree that's there. But I love to draw trees, and I love to find out the shapes of the trees and so forth. So that's what I'm going to do today. We're going to do a drawing, and then from that drawing, I'm going to do a watercolor painting. Now, I've got the downloadable link. I put it out on a message with this video announcement. And also, let me have a comment whether you received that or not. I did one on Facebook, and I put in the comment of the video and see if that was a good way to get the word across. But in today's video, I'll have that link in the description below so that you can download the photograph reference and also the drawing reference that I have, and paint along with me. And then take that and post it on my watercolors page on Facebook. So let's go to my painting table and let's get started. Light's already on. Okay. All right. Okay, this is the photo reference that I have today. Now this is a crepe myrtle tree, and it's on the waterway. And I go there on the weekend. So last weekend I took this picture of this photograph, and this is the one I'm going to use today. But I've cut it down. What I've done is I've taken this and I zoomed in on this area right here, and I enlarged that. So that's really the photo reference that I have. Okay, and that's down. That's the downloadable link that's in the description below. Also, I went into this area here, and I printed off a copy. Look at that. You can see how complex the branches are. And I'm going to go over that today. You'll see there are some little pods up here in this particular tree, and we'll talk about those as far as painting them. But we'll talk about how to simplify the complexity of these branches and so forth. So that'll be part of my exercise today. Put this back over here. This is the drawing that I did from this photograph. From the photograph, I did a drawing, and this is also in my downloadable link on the description below. And both of those are in my website. The photograph and the reference photograph and the copy of the drawing here. And I recommend downloading that and come on and paint along with me. Do the drawing and also do the painting. Let's go over some of my materials today. I like to go over all the material I'm using, the colors and so forth. The colors I'm using is only 3 colors: ultramarine blue, yellow lemon, and Pyrrole red. The 3 primaries that I have in my palette. Also, I'm going to be demonstrating, or going to show you my Everett's watercolor travel set, part of it, which is where I did some reference diagrams. Pound the bottle I used to wet my paper and also to wet the paints. Silver brush, I'll go over the brush. Hake brush, I'll go over those when I show those. And I'm going to use the silver brush Quill blend brush also, and I'll show those in a moment. The colors above are Holbein artist watercolors, and the Holbein watercolor brushes, I'll be using a couple of those today also. I'm also using Gemini 140-pound cold pressed paper. And all these items are available on my website, www.everettswatercolors.com. And there you can find the description, or you can find the location of those on my supply page if you're interested. Also, my Fun with Watercolors page is where I also put a copy of the video and also reference material. That's the area where you can download and put the put your version in the Everett's Watercolor Art Group, and all the links for these links. The links for these pages are in the description of the video below. Let me put that aside. Okay. Well, let me go over a couple little things I did over the weekend. This is my visual journal from my my watercolor travel set. This is a handy little travel set to go along when you're out for taking a trip and so forth. And what I did here was I actually did a little color study of this tree, and I wanted to get the colors I wanted to use in some of the background. And also over here, I was also playing around with some of the detail on the branches and the twigs and so forth. And they're very complex, but we can simplify those, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. And while I was there, also up in that tree, there was a little bird. And I couldn't get a good photograph of him. So what I did, I just did a quick sketch. There were a couple of these little birds flying around in the tree, and they were too small to. We won't use it in the painting today, but I always make a reference to things that I see when I'm out drawing or out taking notes of a particular area. So I drew this on location, plein air, as I was observing the location, as I was observing the tree that I was going to paint. Okay, so that's part of the travel kit that I wanted to demonstrate a little bit. All right. This is what I did on location. I painted the tree as I saw it, and also some of the branches and some of the detailed branches up there. And what I was going to show you here is that this was just my interpretation, and I'll go over a little bit more in description. But this is a plein air reference that I did of the actual tree painting. You can take a look at the reference diagram, reference photograph, and this is what I caught on location with my travel set. And I painted on a bigger sheet of paper. This is my field sketchbook, which has got a bigger page on it. Okay. Let me put that aside. Now the travel kit, what I used, I used this on location with my sketchbook, and in this travel kit, I've got it all loaded, and with the three primary colors, and really all I needed was the yellow, the lemon yellow, the Pyrrole red, and the ultramarine blue, and I put those here in 3 areas, and then you can see the mixtures I've made down here of different colors and so forth, oranges, and I can make the purples, and over here I can make the greens with a combination of blue and the yellow. So this was, and I used a little mixing palette, mixing out here to do also. So I actually used this on location. Okay. And these are the brushes I used. These are the black velvet brushes from Silver Brush. And so with this travel palette, and with these brushes, and with the spray bottle here, I have the dot spray bottle with me also. That was my source of water. That's all I needed, just a little bit of water. This is what I painted on location, plein air, on this piece of paper. So I'm in a studio today, so I'm not going to go use this material here, but I want to demonstrate that that's how I collected the information I did for today's painting. So we'll put this aside. I've got the palette, I've got the paints, put the brush. Now I have a little, the way I carry my brushes, I have a little toothbrush holder that I put my brushes in, and that keeps them nice and, that way they don't get damaged or anything like that in transit. Okay, so that's just an idea to have. It's just an old toothbrush holder. Put your paintbrushes in. I'll put my paints aside. I'll put that over here. And spray bottle, I need a spray bottle a little bit here. Okay. And another tool I'm going to use today is I have this expandable palette that I've shown before a long time ago, but I'm going to use that today in the painting. And it's called a winged watercolor palette. And you can look at it if you're interested in that. You can go to skyart.com, and they have this palette on there just for you to be interested. Okay, the brushes I'm going to use today, I'm going to use the Holbein natural hair, or Holbein synthetic number 16 round. I'm also going to use a silver brush blend watercolor brush. You see it's just it's a nice floppy brush. And I'm going to use also the Holbein number 4 rigger. Okay, those are the main brushes I'm going to use today, along with my 2 Hake brushes, the large silver brush Hake and the little Hake, the small Hake. These 2 brushes I'm going to use today. Okay. Okay. All these paint brushes are available on everettswatercolors.com. Okay. And all the brushes I've shown you are available on my website. Now, before I get started on the actual drawing and painting today, I want to show you also some of my, well, I'll go back, when I get to the painting, I'll go to that. I'm sorry. Don't want to get too far ahead. Move this aside. So the first thing I want to do today is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do a drawing of this particular tree. Now, this is my, I'm going to use a standard mechanical pencil. It's got 2B lead in it, so it's a little bit darker. So it's a standard mechanical pencil. And I made a couple of reference points here for the drawing so I can make sure I go through this fast enough. Now I'm going to go ahead and draw the main limbs. And this is what I suggest, is when we go down here, you don't have to draw, if you're going to paint this, you don't have to draw every line. Just make enough reference points so that you don't get lost in when you're doing the painting of the. Now, when I look at this tree, it's very interesting. I look at when I look at the shapes and so forth. You can see here when I look at a tree, this is the main shoot, the main branch, right, the main trunk. But it had a branch that grew out this way, and of course, this tree has been pruned to train it to go certain directions. But you can see here, this branch moved out and avoided connection with this and contacting this branch over, and that's how trees grow. The branches grow, and they grow so that they don't interfere with the rest of the tree. If you look at a tree or study a tree shape, you'll see that happen. And trees next to each other, the branches will move in accordance with another tree next to it. So that's sort of a cooperative effort here. You see in nature when a tree grows. Now this main route here, or the main trunk, branched off into several other branches on this side. But you can see this little secondary branch moved out here. You can see it when it changes direction. It's usually that's a spurt of growth. That's grew over probably one season right there. It grew out that way, and then it had clearance here, so it could grow. It wanted to grow. Its intention is to grow vertically. The trunk here, then it branches out to the side, and you see here this branch it started vertical. This one here started out to the side, and it had clearance. It went vertical. So that's a reason for that shape of that particular limb right there. Is it had clearance from the rest of the tree. So that's how a tree will grow, and as it goes up, it will branch out and so forth. So all these branches are very important on structure of the tree. You can see to me there's a balance also. As this tree was growing, this branch out here moved out, and the main root over here. There's a balance of weight on the trunk moving more to the right. You can see a lot more mass over here now compared to this one over here. Okay, so that's a little scientific comment about the nature of growing of a tree. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sketch in the main branches and trunk, and the main branches, because that's all I'm really interested in at this point for painting. So now this branch over here branches off, and it goes out and it's got some nice curves to it, and it goes out this direction, and it has also look at the thickness as the tree grows and the branches go out, they get thinner. They go out, they're thinner, they're not as wide, and they also, as they go out to the end, now this one has been pruned here at the end. I'll leave that alone. This branch continued up off of the main trunk. It's heading up toward the sun, trying to get vertical. So a tree is tries to grow toward the source of light, which is going to be vertical. That's its natural intention. The tree naturally tries to grow in a vertical direction. Now, there are a couple other little branches here that are secondary, but they're also important for the shape here. So I'm going to add those in and make sure I get those accounted for. So I'm really drawing in or sketching in the main branches, the main characters of this particular tree shape. Now, some of the secondary branches, you might want to make a line. There's one here with a curve on. Might want to just make a line to show that there's something there, and you can add that in as a secondary branch. So I'll put just a couple single lines here showing me that this particular branch went out and branched off into several other branches. Another interesting shape here that this branch here went off to this branch. This one went off here, and this one went off. So it kind of branches off and it grows in different directions, but they all head north or toward the sky. So I'm making some reference points here for these other branches. They all will go from they all lead from the branch, and they all head upward in an upward direction. But they're curving. They curve with that's really shows the spurt of growth. Each season they grow a different length of distance. So when you watch a tree grow over the seasons, you'll see that as they grow and they get bigger, you'll see the direction. This one has a branch coming down this way. I'll put that in. This overhangs. This is in front of this one, but I'm going to make sure I have it marked there. This branch comes down. So I'm making little notes to myself of some of these smaller branches so I can pick them up on my painting. There's a little branch coming off here. Let me finish the one up the top here. There's this branch splits. This branch splits up into two at this point. Okay, so I've captured the main trunk and this main branches, and the branch off here to the right, and a couple of these middle branches that go off here, and this major branch here to the left, which goes over and up, and it splits here at the top into a left branch. And there's a couple of branches overhanging. I caught those. Now, the background, I'm going to very simplify. I'm not going to make any detail back here. I'm going to cover that in a different one. When you get into the painting, I'll cover that. But I'm going to simplify the background. I will have a little foreground here with some grass at the bottom. And so what I'll do is I'll draw in the little line here showing that the foreground, there's a little bit of grass here, and there's a waterway beyond that. So I'll put a little line across here. And there's also a nice little, if you look down here, there's a nice little shadow pattern. And you also see a nice shadow pattern up here in the tree itself. You'll see the shadow pattern. I'll talk about that in a few moments because I did a value study of this. Okay, so I've got I'm drawing a little bit of shadow down here at the bottom. Now I can tell at this time here, this photograph was taken in the morning, about 9 o'clock or 9:15, and because I know the time, that's the time I took it. But I also know that this water, with this direction, faces east to west. So you can tell from the shadow that the sun was on my left shoulder, so the shadow was moving to the right or toward the west. So this east and west direction of the water, so it gives you a little sense of where the directions are. North and west, this was north and south, and of course up and down was a tree. Okay, just a little more a little more information about the photograph. Now, before I start the painting, let me show you a little step I did here. I drew this. I did another drawing here from the photograph. I did a freehand sketch here, just like I did with it on the paper. So what I suggest is that when you're looking at the trees, or especially in the winter here, we get all these branches and everything, it's a good idea to do a drawing. That way you become familiar with the shapes, you become familiar with the curves and so forth. But what I did here is, you'll notice the way this thing grows, it comes out and this actually twists. You'll see a twist in the trunk as it moves up. And on this one over here, you'll see the twist in the branches. They turn as they turn the curve. Now I've also plotted in, or I thought I plotted in the shadow pattern here on the trunk. So you can see here, this Rui value study is going to help me when I paint here to get in some darker values here to show the actual shadows. Now the sunlight was hitting part of the tree, so there's a nice light and dark color on the bark of the tree, which is what I'm going to try to capture today. The light branches and the light part of the branch, and the dark part of the branches from the shadow. And there's a lot of little branches here in the back. I drew those in just for practice. I drew a lot more in than what I did on the sketch. As you can see there, I did a lot of practice on just getting the direction and the size and the shapes of some of those back branches. And we'll talk about that when we get down to that stage. But right now, when you start out with a basic painting, just get the main branches and the main shapes in there. That's all you really have to do to get started. Okay, let me put this aside here. I'm done with this drawing. Photograph. We'll be looking at the photograph a little bit now and then. And really, all I really need to look at now is my value sketch. This is really the most important part right now, is where the values are. And I'll look at the photograph to get some idea about those branches. This one may help me a little bit on the design of some of the smaller branches and so forth. Okay, so now we're ready to go. We're going to do a painting now. We did a drawing. I did a couple drawings, but you can do a drawing from the photograph, the reference photograph. Now I'll leave this over here. I'm going to move this over here out of the way. And I'll put this over here aside. Okay, so now we're going to concentrate on the painting. Now, as far as the colors go, I did a little color study. I did a little color study and some practice with my color combinations. Now, what I've laid out here is very simple. I got the three colors. And let me wet the brush a little bit, get that ready to go, and get my pads. Okay. This is a number 16 round Holbein synthetic brush. It works very nicely. And I'll show you some techniques on that. The first color is the ultramarine blue. This first color I did here. Now, ultramarine blue, I have two pots here. This is more of a concentrated ultramarine blue, and this has been watered down a little bit, because I'll go over that a little bit in a minute. This is a stronger solution of ultramarine blue, and this is a weaker solution. I'm just adding more water to it over here. Then I have my Pyrrole red and my lemon yellow over here. So this is the color I want to use for the blue. Oh, before I do that, I got to explain my let me explain my plan of attack here. There are really three colors that really have on this painting. There's the blue sky. There's some greenery back here, some green trees, a little bit of darker green. Then I have the blue water, and then I have the yellow green grass, or light green grass in the foreground. So blue, green, blue, and yellow green down here. So that's why I've got this palette set up this way. So that I can do the blue for this. I can do blue for the water, which is what I'm going to use here. I can mix that with a little bit of red to give me a color, a little bit of purple for the water. I can mix the blue and the green to give me the blue green, which is what I did here. This I put blue and violet. I put that together. Blue violet. That's really blue and the red mixed together. Gives me a blue violet. I can use that for the water. And then down here, yellow green. That's a lot of yellow with a little bit of blue in it. It gives me the yellow green. Okay. So I got blue, green, and yellow, and I got yellow, green, and I got the mixtures there that I can use with the red to give me a different value of red, of blue, excuse me. Now I took those three colors, red, yellow, and blue, and I can show you here that if you combine those three, you can come up with an orange, and you can even come up with a brown. Okay, because this tree is really a light brown with a darker shadow. So I'm going to use a light brown for the for the area that's in the sunlight, and then I'm going to put a darker shadow on the shadow side, which is a darker mixture. So I can do a light and a dark mixture here of the brown. So this is my painting plan right here. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put the background washes in. Is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take the Hake brush, and the reason I have this palette here is because I can get these brushes now working very nicely for me. Let me get a bigger brush here. Let me make sure my paints are ready to go. So this one here, this little bucket here, I've got the, I'm going to use my out in the bottle dot sprayer. Add some water to this. Spray in some water. I want a light blue mix. And what I'll do is let me test. I have a little test sheet here. Okay, and that's what I want. Okay, I want a nice light blue. Okay. Now I'll mix up the rest of my colors so I can get ready to go on down the road here. I'm going to need a little bit of yellow green. Now I'm going to pick the stronger blue. And I'm going to add just a little bit of yellow to that. And that just a little bit of yellow to that blue now will give me a yellow blue. Now make a bigger puddle here. I'll go this way. I'll put the yellow in here. I'll get a yellow blue this way. So this will be the mix for the background trees. That'll be the mix for the background trees. Okay, I use this blue over here, and I add a little bit of yellow to that. I rinse out the brush a little bit. Now for the take some I got in the palette here. Now for the water, I'm going to take the blue, and I'm going to put just a touch of red in it. Just a touch of red just to take off the blue edge. So that'll be the color of the water. Put a lot of water now. Just want to put. I want it to be a blue, but I want to put just a little violet in it, just to make it a different color from the blue sky, because it's got some shadows to it. That's going to be the color of the water, right there. Okay. And then my last mix is going to use this light. I'm going to use this lighter blue over here with more water in it, and I'm going to put a lot more yellow with this. A lot more yellow in this mix. Okay, rinse that out. Oh, okay. Hi, Diane. Hi, Diane. I see you're on watching a view. That's good. Nice meeting you. I'm gonna put a little more water in this mixture here. So I want this. I'm going to paint this one. So that's gonna now. There's my 4 mixes right there. Okay. But the plain blue for the sky, a little bit of blue and yellow for the background tree mix, and then put a little bit of red in that. They give me a different color of blue for the shadows and so forth in the water. And then this is a light green, yellow green mix here for the foreground grass. Okay, so my big mixes are all ready to go. So that's why I design. That's why I have this wing palette here. It's good for plein air, but it also keeps the mixers separate instead of the big palette. Okay, now I'm going to take my Hake brushes. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the paper a little bit. So I'm going to start up here at the top, put a little bit of water. Don't want too much, just enough to dampen it a little bit because it'll make the paint flow a little better. And I don't want, otherwise they'll give me a dry brush, and I just want this thing to flow. I want a nice. Now this background is very simple, but I'm staying with the mood of the painting. And really, we're painting a tree today. We're not really painting backgrounds. We're not really painting objects any more than just a tree. But the background gives me a setting, a mood for this particular area. So now I'm going to wet the small Hake. This small Hake is a goat hair, natural hair from Silver Brush, and it holds a lot of water. And so I'm going to just dip it into this blue here. This is a light blue mix that I use for the sky, a light blue mix. So I'll go up here and I'll put that in. That's all I want, just a tint of blue, because I'm going to paint over top of that with a tree. Okay, and then I'm going to rinse out the brush a little, and I'm picking up that green now that I want to get for the background trees, So I'm picking up a little bit of this mix. Remember, I put just a little bit of yellow in with that green, or a little bit of yellow in with that blue to make the green. So now I'm going to go in now and put that across here. Now that way, just signify that that's where the trees are in the background. No detail, just to show that there was color back there. Okay. Now the 4th mix, I'm cleaning out the brush. Was I used the ultramarine blue, just a touch of red to give me a little purple mix for the water, just to give me a different color. I come across there, but it gives me a different color than the sky. It shows a little bit of sky color, but it indicates a little bit of shadow in there, a little different color here in this particular painting. Okay, very soft, just dragging the brush along, barely touching the paper. Okay, now the larger section down here, because of the tree in the foreground, is going to be this light green. And I mixed the light green up already. I'm just cleaning out the brush. I don't want any blue and red in there yet. I pick up this light green mix here and finish off the foreground. What I can do is I pick up a little more blue in that. I can what I want to do, that's a little bit too much yellow, so I want to put a little more blue in that mixture just to make it more green. So by adding a little blue, to that mixture now, it gives me a darker sense of yellow green down here. Yellow green. What I want to do now is I want to pick up some of this color here that I covered the tree with. I want to take that out. Just a little bit, okay? Okay, now I'm going to dry the paint. Okay, well done here. I've done a background wash of blue for the sky. Then I did a blue-green for the background trees, very light mixture. And I did a mixture of ultramarine blue and Pyrrole red. They gave me a weak violet, really. A different color from the sky color, slightly. And then the foreground, I put a lot of yellow in with that blue to give me a yellow-green mix. So the foreground had most of the attention as far as color goes. Because everything else up there is going to be covered up with a tree, so you won't see much of the background. I make sure that the trunk here is nice and dry. That's what I'm going to paint on. Okay. Wipe off the excess moisture on the edge. Okay. All right. Now, what I'm going to do now is start getting into the actual tree, and this can go fairly quickly because the tree's got the trunks and so forth, and when I get done with it, we'll start seeing this tree come together. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use this number 16 round Holbein brush, which is a synthetic brush, but it does a nice job. It's a nice big brush. And what I can do here now, I'm going to mix up a light brown, which I got the yellow and blue down here. Now mixing a little bit of red in this. Now that gives me a gray. Red and blue, it'll give me a purple. Put this complement in, which is yellow. Now you can start seeing the colors starting to form into a light brown. That's a mixture of the lemon yellow, Pyrrole red, which turns it to orange, and a little bit of blue which is a complement of orange, will turn it into a grayer color, which is a light brown. Now, if I want to make it lighter, which I do, I'm going to put a little more yellow into it. A little more yellow. Now, we'll take a test sheet here and let's see the color we want. That's a little bit light brown. Let's see. Now that looks like a little more yellow, so I'll put a little more red in it to give it an orangey look. Add a little more red to the mix. That's better. Okay, now there's my light brown. Okay, I played around with this mixture, add a little bit of red to it, and now I get a little light brown. Okay. And that's how you mix up colors. But I'm going to add a little more expansion to this. More red. I need making room for all these branches I'm going to be putting in. But only, this paint will go a long way. So I just add some more yellow in there. So I'm remixing that puddle to make me a bigger puddle. A little touch of blue to cool it down. Blue is a cooling color. Let's check that color one more time. That's good. And it's going to dry a little bit lighter, so that's what I want. Okay. Now, also another thing to think about is that I'm going to go ahead and paint this in. So I'm going to follow my drawings, and this main trunk here. So So I'm going to put the yellow. I'm going to put the yellow. I'm going to put the light brown mixture in or on the painting first, light brown. Then we'll come back and put the shadows in later. So this is the light brown. So we start with a light brown color to get the characteristic of the tree. And you see how this brush works? I love it. It just got this point. I can go wide. I can get a nice wide stroke, or I can just let up a little pressure bit on, and I can get right down to the points, right down to the point. Give me a nice sharp edge. The bottom of the tree. So I'm going to continue on now. Now you keep adding branches. Now this one here. This is the main. This is the main trunk of this tree. So I'm going to paint them all. I'm going to make them all light colors right now. Then we'll put the shadow pattern in, which will show the difference of the size of the tree, branch, and so forth. Also, when I get to it, we'll talk about location of these branches, because when you paint the tree, you want to observe where the lights and darks are, and we'll go over that in a little bit here when I get the branches in. But I'm starting off with a branch, which went off here to the right. Now we're going to work on the left branch over here, get that started. Well, what I'll do is I'm going to speed up my motion here. So I'll just lay the brush down, get the large. Just want you to get the idea of how to paint this. And go up here, and I can start at the top, which will run out. I like it when a painting runs out the top of the page. So I'll start using very light pressure here, and then as I get down, as the branch gets wider, I just press down and make it bigger. It becomes an automatic tree builder. This round brush. That little branches off here. This has a couple little side branches. The tree is amazing. It breaks up into different angles. During each growing season, it'll branch off to a different shape, a different form. Okay, so I'm going to just put in the main branches here. So what I'm capturing, get the main shapes here, the main branches. And then we'll go into the real smaller twigs here in a little while. When I get this done. Starting up here at the top, where it goes light pressure. Then as you come down, add more pressure to the brush, and then it'll widen up a little bit. That's how a round brush works. This branch over here, I like this one here. This is a nice. I like the shape of this one. It goes out here, and it curves. There's a growth. You can see the growth of this branch. It goes here, and it angles off, then it angles again. It changes direction again. So that shows really that each season it'll grow a different direction. It's all going to head upward, onward and upward. That tree will keep moving upward as high as it can go. It depends on the species of the trees. These type of trees can grow pretty high if you let them keep growing naturally, because they'll keep growing as long as they can get to the source of light, which is the sky. This one has a little curve, so I'll put that in there. Okay, we're almost done here now with these main branches. This becomes almost meditative. You can sit here and just put in the shapes and the curves and so forth, and just watch the tree grow right before your eyes. Okay, now those are really the main branches. Let me put this one up here also. There's an extension out here. Okay. Now, while that's drying, I'm going to mix up the next batch. I'm going to make a little darker brown now for the shadow. So all I'm going to do now with this brown is add some blue to it. Darken it up. And I can add in a little bit of the yellow. That'll make the green. And then what's the complement of green is red. So I get the red going. That'll start turning it brown. I'll lighten it up a little bit with I'll lighten the color up a little bit with the yellow. And now a little bit darker with the blue. I'll make sure this is a nice shadow pattern, so we'll make it like it's a purple. Blue and red makes a little purple along with that brown. So now we have a nice dark brown mix. There's a light brown, here's the dark brown. Okay. Now what I did was add in more color, add in the yellow and reds and blues, but also mix them so that they would come out with a brown. I mixed the red and the green together from the blue and yellow. Let's see. I think I might want to add a little more blue to this mixture, just a little more. I'm going to get a little bit darker than that because it's in shadow. The shadow's got a cooler color to it, so it has a little more blue. Okay, I add a little bit of blue to that mix up here and make it a little bit darker and cooler. All right, now let me check and see. Let me run the dryer just a minute. We're putting a light color of brown for the side that's facing the light. Okay, now we're going to start. I'm going to use my my value plan here for the shadow pattern. And what I did, I took it right off the photograph, but I went ahead and I drew it up because that way I became familiar with the shape. I became familiar with where the shadows are and how big they are. Okay, so I'm going to use that as my guide. So this first one here is a shadow. It's going to come right out of here. This branch here is shadowed up here. And it's going to come down on the right side of the trunk. It's going to be the sharp edge. And bring it right on down to the base, right down to the base. I'll do another one over here now. I've got that one started. Now this one over here has an interesting little shape to it. And I drew it out really carefully so I'd have the angle, the shape that I wanted. It starts up here, and this branch here goes behind the main trunk, a little bit behind. So there's a little shadow here right next to the main trunk, right here. And that shows that branch is behind. And then it goes up this way. You can see that nice dark shadow now is really going to show that off. The shape is going to show that shape off very nicely. Interesting little shadow here. It has a little curve to it. And then it comes down a little bit here. See, by drawing the shapes on my sketch, I became familiar with the location and the shape of these shadows. There's a slim shadow going up the top of this branch here. Okay. I can take a small brush. This is a number 8 round. And I can come along here now. I can soften these edges just a little bit. And what that does, it makes this look like a gradual movement of the shadow. It's not a sharp edge per se. So I'll give us a soft rounding edge. But just by taking a damp brush and moving it along the edge of the wet paint, I can soften that edge up a little bit. And that'll give the impression of a curved surface, that it has a little bit of curvature there on the shadow side here. Just a damp brush running along the edge of the paint, and it'll soften that edge up a little bit, a little more believable. As a round, these limbs are round, so make them look round by softening up the shadow edge. The outside shadow edge is hard because it's the edge of the shadow. The inside edge is going to be soft because it's got a round shape to it. Okay. Now continue on this branch over here. Yeah, I really like the shape of this tree. That's why I picked it out as a project to demonstrate drawing and also be able to paint in some of the values here. Now, because there's a lot of detail, but it takes a little bit of time. You don't want to rush this little process. You want to take your time on this. So I'm going to show you just enough of this to get it started here, and I'll show you a more finished one that I did earlier. This will show you the steps that I used to paint these shapes in. Now this branch here was all in sunlight. This branch here was in shadow. So if I didn't have a drawing of this, or I could follow the photograph, but I want to follow my drawing. That was my study, the drawing. So the drawing gave me the key to where I want to go with this. This is also dark back here. And this part of this little branch is in shadow. Going over here. This part's in shadow. Okay, I'm going to finish off this little section right here. Then we'll go into the smaller branches, which I'll get to, and then we'll wrap it up for today. This one's got a shadow cast by that branch down here. And this has got a little shadow. I'm just using the tip of this number 16 round, just the tip of the brush to get those fine edges. And this is why this is so I can do a broad brush stroke or a narrow brush stroke with this brush. It's a multi-purpose brush. I really love it. And this branch here is in shadow. This is a Holbein synthetic brush, and it's available on my website, and I recommend it. It's very useful brush to have. It holds a lot of water. I could probably paint almost this whole tree with a brush load of paint. This one over here, I'm going to try to put in a little bit more, as much of this characteristic of this tree before I go to the smaller branches. This big one here was in shadow all the way up. Remember I had cropped this tree down, or the part here I'm painting. I cropped it down, so there was a lot more branches above. So that casts more shadow on some of these branches down here from the above part of the tree. A little bit shadow here, and maybe this little one here. Okay, I'm going to stop right there at that point. And I got most of the shadow installed here on the painting. Here. Now, when you get those smaller branches, this is where you need a rigger. or a small brush. And I've used the rigger brush here. Now, the key to the background. Now, the foreground branches. You remember the branches in the foreground. There's also branches in the background, in the back part of the tree. So the branches that are in front of you are going to be a little bit darker and warmer color. That's what the brown is for. But the branches that are backward in the back part of the tree are going to be lighter because they're further away, and they're going to be a little bit cooler, which have a little bit of green in them, or a little bit of blue in them. So those branches, which I'm going to put in now, just a few of them, will signify that they're going back behind in the back of the tree. So I'm using blue now, a little bit of blue, showing that these branches now go back into the back part of the tree. So I just show a few of those just to indicate that that's how you would paint the background branches to put in the different limbs. The limbs forward would be darker and warmer, and the ones back would be a little bit cooler. That's why I used the blue back there. Now, for some of these other smaller branches, now I'm going to use the same color I had here with a rigger brush. Get these fine branches that come off the larger branches, which gives you a lot of detail. And so a fine brush like a rigger brush I'm just going to put a few of these in here because there's probably a 500,000 branches on this, or twigs and so forth on this tree. And so you don't have to draw them all, but pick the most prominent ones that really make a lot of sense, and spend some time on painting those. Now on this tree here, there's lots of little endings that come off there, and I'll show you how I did that in a few moments. Okay, so that's indicate how you do the branches. And when I did my drawing, I'll show you up close. I did a lot of detail on the actual branches, okay, and the twigs and so forth, okay. So I would time if I had more time on this, I would keep on going. But I want to finish up one more step. Now I'm going to use the silver brush quill, wet it up so the branches. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in some of those real fine. If you look at the photograph, there's really a little clusters of fine branches. Fine branches. And this one here, this close up I showed, you can see in more detail. There's clusters of branches here, little twigs. Okay. Well, how you handle that is you get a brush, and this is the mop brush, or this is a quill brush. And what I can do here is I'm going to use blue, I guess. Mix in a little bit of that brown. That's okay. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a little test here. And I'm going to just use the back of it. Usually I want a little bit more paint on that. But now you're going to have to dry it out. So what I'm going to do now is just use a little brush, just a little brush stroke, just a little bit of pigment on it, just a little bit. And that'll indicate those fine. So I load the brush, press it down to spread out the bristles. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to just do on here, on these branches where I see a lot of that small twigs and so forth. Just going to indicate that those little marks are actually small twigs and small branches. Especially this area right here. There's a lot of them right here. So if they look like, when you finish up with them, let me see if I can get a close up. This section right here, I put a few of the they're fine. You can hardly, you have to really look at them very closely to see them, but they're there. So you fill those, you put those in around certain areas, and you can build a little pattern of those in your painting like that using a this is a mop. This is a not a mop. This is a quill. This is a quill brush. Uh, you could use. You could also use a round brush. You could use a round brush also. Just by pressing down on the palette, get some paint in there. Do a few brush strokes. Do a few practice strokes. Spread more than that. That won't work. That won't work that way. I don't like that. Okay. All right. Okay. Also down here. Now, also in the foreground, I would put in some darker colors. I'll show you that in my final painting, and also the shadow pattern. Okay. So let me show you. Let me take you to. So that's the steps I would do to do the painting. I'll do the light color first for the sunshine side, and then a darker pattern for the shadow side. Then add in the smaller branches. The twigs and branches in the background will be a little cooler. I use a little bit of blue on my painting, and the ones that are forward will be a little bit darker and warmer. And then using a brush, you have a fan brush or you have this mop brush. You can use that to put in those strokes there. Now, also what I've done also is I've taken a permanent ink. This is actually an ink pen, and I've gone in and put in actual detail on top of what I've done there. I do those branches, and I'll go in and put in branch. Let me show you. Let me show you one here I did. Okay, this is a practice one I did where I put more branches in there, and I put in these twigs. And when I got down to the point here, I used the same brush. Use the same brush with the same technique. Get the fine branches, and then I actually went in with a rigger, did some, but also I went in with this pencil with this fine, and put in the final little details. You can see the little branches down here on the ends here. I did with a ink pen. Okay, let me put a mat around it. So you see when you get this is almost finished. I did a little practice here, so I wanted to practice the branches and also show you how to do the details on it. But when you wind up, it turns out to be a very interesting little detail. Let me bring this up to the top. Oh, there's the water bucket. Okay. All right, so there's a look at what the final painting would look like almost when it's done. So let me go back over to my name table. Okay, when I get to that point where I stop, there's some details in there and things that I didn't want to rush that point. I want to finish off and do that, and I'll probably do that and finish it off, and then post that as a separate picture along with this video, because I think the detail would take a lot more time to show and tell. But I showed you enough there what I did, putting in the extra detail with the smaller brushes and the smaller brushwork and so forth, that you can complete that on your own. There is, if you have questions or you have comments on this, please give me a comment on the video, on the comments section below. Also, the downloadable links are there for you to download and try this yourself. And give it a try. I think you'll find it very interesting. And also learn more about drawing trees and painting trees, especially in the wintertime. It's a lot more fun in the summertime when you're painting leaves and all the outline of the tree, but it's more interesting sometimes to find out how the tree was grown and how it was shaped inside. Okay, well, I'll be back again next week, Thursday at 2 o'clock. So we'll see you then.